I'm sure there's lots of stories out there of loss and grief that everyone goes through. Seven years ago today, I gave birth to my sixth child, John Edward Crawford. That was, as you can imagine, a very emotional, hard time for me and for the whole family. We had just moved to Kentucky after living in Seattle our whole life, and I was 6 months pregnant. And we had an appointment with a midwife, and she couldn't find the heartbeat. And I remember it was the day before my birthday, April 11th. And I just remember being just so shocked. I had had 5 healthy kids before this. I'd never dealt with anything like this before. The most death I had dealt with was grandparents. And it was so hard to imagine that I was literally still carrying my baby's body inside of me, but he was gone. At that point in time, Ben was working a lot, and he put work on hold, came home, and we just cried and took as long as we needed, which was weeks, and to just mourn the loss of our child, and for the kids, the loss of a sibling. And I chose not to go to the hospital. None of my births have been in hospitals, so it felt more natural for me to give birth outside of a hospital if possible. I got an ultrasound to, make sure, yes, definitely the baby's dead. And I spent the next 3 weeks, and I didn't know how long it would take for my body to give birth. It ended up taking 3 weeks. Those were really precious weeks, hard but precious, because I was able to just mourn the loss of my child while still carrying his body inside of me, which I actually think was really important for me to still feel this connection somehow, this tangible connection to him. But it was weird because in our society, that's kind of a weird thing to carry around a dead body. I mean, death is so covered up in our society. But I think it really helped me to, I just fully immersed myself as much as I could in this grieving and loss that I found myself in. 3 weeks later, I gave birth at home to John, to his body. And only Ben and I were there for that moment. And it actually was poignant, I think, in a way, because all of our other births had lots of other people there. And it was this celebration, but this time it was just Ben and I, and we thought we wanted it that way. But what was cool is my midwife from Seattle, in a crazy turn of events, was on a road trip already with her husband and was able to join us I mean, she was literally only in this town for 24 hours, and it happened to be when I gave birth. I don't think that's a coincidence, and it was really special for her to be there to help us and to just help us process this. I remember holding his body in the palm of my hand, and it was such a like out of body experience. The grief hit me like a train. It was crazy. And the kids were able to come see him, and the next day we buried him. And that was a really sweet time too. And after that, the mourning and grief took on a whole nother flavor for me. It was much darker. I think reality kind of set in for me of what happened, and it was really hard. But I really believed in that. I really wanted to immerse myself in grief and mourn the loss of him, because I knew if I didn't do it then, I'd eventually have to do it later, and I think it's just better to just, like, if you can, like, immerse yourself in it in the moment when the feelings are the most raw. And I think by doing that, it actually really helped me to move on. And I definitely have had times in the last 7 years where it will kind of hit me. But every year that goes by, it's less and less. And this day, 7 years ago, it feels like a distant memory. I still feel the loss, for sure. You know, I think about him being 7 years old. You know, his actual due date was in August, so it would be 7 in August, just a little younger than Filia. And, you know, and that hurts. I'm like, man, that would have been really, really cool to see him grow up and to have him be a part of our family. But the pain is definitely not acute. The pain is more distant as I'm telling this story. But I can still remember how much it really hurt. And I think our family is forever impacted by him, even though he never lived. He's still a part of us. If you're interested, we made a memorial video for him about 6 or 7 years ago, and we'll put a link for that down below. I think you should check it out. Thanks for listening to my story, and I'm sure there's lots of stories out there of loss and grief that everyone goes through, and each one of them is important.